For me, I'm a big proponent of followers don't matter, because what really matters is your engagement and whether they're actually engaging. So I think finally publishers are starting to say, okay, yes, let's look at the total audience. Great. But are these people actually participating in the community and the conversation with this subject matter expert?
Welcome to the Marketing Expedition Podcast, an auditory journey through the latest in marketing, branding, and advertising. Now, here's your Marketing Expedition guide, Ray Allen.
On this episode of the Marketing Expedition Podcast, I get to speak with Karlyn Ankrom, and she is the founder and lead strategist of Oh Snap Social and creator of the Firestarter framework, a new approach to social media marketing made specifically for businesses who are tempted to fake their own death and flee to Tahiti at the mere thought of content creation. Karlyn developed her user-friendly strategy after working for a decade with a variety of brick-and-mortar businesses who were decidedly social allergic, not because they didn't want to do social media, but because they were intimidated by it. In response, her new system helps newbies get on the fast track to unsticking their social media in just 1 hour per week. And we're going to talk all about why we measure what we treasure and what matters, why the numbers of followers don't always matter, and what actually is important to measure. So before we do that, it's time now for your Marketing Essentials moment, the basics that you need to help you continue to build your brand and your bottom line. If you've been following along, we've been talking about advertising and how important it is to incorporate all of the things that you need to think about in your marketing strategy and plan. And today's topic, we're going to discuss developing the media plan. And really what this is a document that outlines the strategy and approach for your advertising campaign. Now that we've already discussed the messaging, how you're going to incorporate creating an effective ad and the advantages of advertising and all of those things that we've been talking about over the series here. And so the media plan really is developed simultaneously with the creative strategy. The standard media plan really consists of the stages, right? Stating the media objective. What is it that we're wanting to accomplish? Evaluating all of the different media that we can, there's so many different platforms that we can use, but evaluating what's going to be the most effective that we feel that is going to be the best way to reach your target audience based on the surveys and focus groups and all of the primary and secondary research that ideally you've done at this point. And then selecting and implementing those media choices and determining the budget. So really, you can think about how your objectives can be stated in dimensions, right? The reach, the number of different people or households exposed to a particular media or medium vehicle, and the schedule and how it's going to be displayed over a specific period of time. So that, and then the frequency. So we've got reach and now we've got frequency. The number of times within a given period of time that your ideal client is exposed to that message. And then continuity, the timing of the media assets that you're going to put out there and in when you're going to do it specifically. Oftentimes we don't just run from day one all the way through the entire campaign. We will do flights. So that way it's on again, off again in specific timeframes that we feel is going to be the most impactful. That way we're not spreading it so thin that you're not going to reach the number of times that you want to reach for reach and frequency, and then continuity. So thinking about how you're going to evaluate the media that you're going to use, or the medium, if you're doing omni-channel and lots of different channels to put it out there, and think about the strengths and weaknesses associated with each medium and how you're able to track each medium. Or not. In traditional methods, sometimes it's a lot harder to track unless you do specific calls to actions or use QR codes, or maybe there's promo codes that you can use so that you can track it specifically. But think about the different strengths and weaknesses and then time and budget costs to each of those advertising medium that you're going to use. So television can work, but now we've got so many different more ways to do connected TV or streaming TV, to where now we can track and understand specifically what types of programming we want. So programmatic advertising in connected TV, not necessarily just traditional methods of your local TV stations, but now we've got such a plethora of places to be able to put your ads in connected TV or over the top ads. So OTT ads, and where those are going to be displayed and how they're going to be displayed and what kind of budget you're going to put towards each of those, and the amount of time and the flights that you're going to do for continuity. And then, like radio, it can be flexible, it could be inexpensive, but it depends on what time of day or day part you're running in, if it's drive time versus, late at night, overnight. Unless your product or service is something that's going to dictate that late at night is a good, maybe you're promoting insomnia and maybe late at night is a good time for you to do it. Maybe it's, a better pillow because you want to sleep better, right? So sometimes it does, dictate that late at night is okay based on your audience and what it is that you're trying to promote, right? So yeah, just thinking about, if it's newspaper, print, magazines, if it's your audience, that's where they go to get their information. If they still, take the paper, which, usually traditionally is a little bit older of an audience, like senior citizen marketing can definitely be a tactic to take depending on what your ideal target audience is. If you're going to put on during Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune, those types of shows that generally an older audience might watch, although it's starting to swing a younger crowd now these days too. But anyway, thinking about what's going to be the most cost-effective investment for reaching your audience specifically. Display ads offer a lot of flexibility and creative options, all the way from bus wraps to bench ads to banner ads to search engine ads, and now voice search optimization, paid listings, pay-per-click, all of those things that you're going to consider in your marketing strategy and plan, and all of the different channels that you're going to select in your media plan. And of course, testing the messaging is always important. So spend a little bit to test a little bit more, and doing Facebook ads at a small budget can kind of test and see what kind of things you're getting, what kind of engagement. If one ad is producing better results than the other, dump the other, do it again, test it again and again. And you can use this as a platform to be able to make sure that you're resonating with your target audience. And it's primary research that you can do. But thinking about all the different strengths and weaknesses for each modality that you're going to use, right, can definitely help you while you're putting your media plan together, while you're putting your creative strategy together at the same time, and thinking about how it's going to get displayed and what kinds of audiences you're going to have, and the different platforms that require a different way of doing it. If it's the specs that you need versus square versus rectangle versus, whatever it is that you're going to continuously think about, the real estate space that you have on the feed that you're going to serve it up, or on the big screen TV or in movie theater advertising, right? There's lots of different components here to continuously think about, and being able to reach your target audience that, 15 to 17 times, let's say. And maybe every market, every industry is a little bit different before people will pick up on the fact that they've even heard of your brand before. So thinking through all of that and testing it out, if it's cable TV, if it's, you name it, you've got some place that you can put an ad in some way or shape or form, or even getting creative and putting ads where you haven't ever done it before, or maybe has never been done before, right? That's always an opportunity that I love to look for as well, to kind of lead the charge in what's trending and what's next. All right, let's get into the interview. Stay tuned to next time, and we'll talk more about selection and implementation, and how a media buyer works, and why you need to consider working with one if you are trying to go out alone versus working with an agency. We can talk about that. But stay tuned for more. And now let's get into our interview on the Marketing Expedition podcast. Welcome to the Marketing Expedition podcast. I'm your host, Ray Allen. I'm the president and CEO of Peppershock Media, and also the founder of the Marketing Expedition community. And today we have Karlyn. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ray. Glad to be here.
All right. What's one thing about you that isn't in your bio that is something that people just need to know about you?
I am finally niching down and focusing solely on authors in the business. And something more personal about me is I actually teach dance part-time. I've been a dancer since the age of 3, so it's my passion.
What's your dance specialty? What do you like to do?
Tap, jazz, and hip hop are my things. And it was never a ballerina. Didn't quite have like the facility for that.
Got you. Yeah, I balance was never my friend, so I played musical instruments. That was my contribution to the artistic performing arts world. Very
Yes.
cool.
Good instrument.
Oh my gosh, I played clarinet. I played so many different instruments. I even transferred. I even played baritone for a bit. You name it, I've probably at least tried to play it. Yep. That was my skill set. Now, don't get me singing, because I mean I do it anyway, but I know I'm tone deaf in that regard. So
yeah. Every time I sing to my students when I'm teaching, they're like, Miss Karlyn, could you not?
Yeah. Thank goodness though, my youngest son picked up the ability to sing, and he did audition choir and got in younger, and he's in high school, but I'm just so grateful he is not like my tone deafness. It's very good.
That's amazing.
Awesome. So Karlyn, let's dig in a little bit more. You're focusing on authors, which is amazing, but let's kind of give a little background on kind of how you evolved and got to that conclusion that is who you wanted to serve the most, and what is it that you do for them?
Yes. So Oh Snap Social has gone through several iterations over the past 6 years. I've done it full time for myself, and before that there was another like 3 where it was the side hustle.
Yeah.
And I have served from brick and mortar businesses to non-sexy industries like HVAC, plumbing, and handyman services, and they all have a similar baseline and purpose and mission, which is to help people, right?
Right.
And I was synced up with a publicist who helped heart-centered entrepreneurs who wanted to build a brand and a business through a book. And so I had worked with a lot of authors over time and had helped them do content for them. And that was a slippery slope, because they've been themselves for 30, 40, 50 plus years. I've been them for 30, 40, 50 seconds.
All right.
And though I do pride myself in like being very well-versed in conditioning voice and tone to match brands and personality types, there's nothing that is a quality substitute for a personal brand, an author, an expert, a thought leader, than doing social media content themselves. So what I help them do is navigate through their own customized author. I have to come up with a less fancy term, but ideal client like profile that they can then leverage their manuscript or their existing book or blogs or any kind of portfolio of content to match it up with their ICP and create content utilizing AI like that. And then all they have to do is mold and condition it. Because these folks get very hyper fixated on, I don't want to look dumb. I don't want to look desperate. Do I sound too salesy? When we need to help them flip the script and that mindset of the content actually isn't about them. It's about their audience.
Serving their audience. So yeah.
And so that's really what I help them focus on and serve as that strategic guide in their back pocket while they're doing that content development, so that they can build the confidence, not just in the messaging, but also in like the mechanics of it all.
That sounds like it would be very rewarding to be able to work with, and I love the term that you used, heart-centered entrepreneurs. I think that's amazing. I'm gonna use that, and I'll of course give full credit where credit is due. But I think that's a great way.
Oh, not even mine.
Yeah. I mean, I think though that it's true. You want to work with those who serve, that want to serve, and have that mindset to be able to. And sometimes, isn't it great to work with people like that are, they're just so much more inclined to be easier to work with, in my opinion, because they want to serve and they want to help, right? They don't want to make things so difficult and, And man, it's very interesting the way the world is working now, where people just want this instant gratification and they immediately think that they get what they, are expecting and deserve. And sometimes it's just, I want to work with heart-centered people.
Yeah. And I do agree. Like, and the reason why I've like classified the people that I love to work with as like heart-centric, and they really are, focused on making the impact, is because I've seen when I'm like, oh, I just work with authors, there's two very distinguished types, right? There's like the impact driven change makers, and then there's the ones that do it for like the clout and ego.
Mm-hmm.
And like, those are not my people. I will like to say candidly, though, we all have to have somewhat of a healthy ego to publish a book, because there's a level of confidence there that's required to get something that massive, literally your heart and words and thoughts on pages out into the world. So, but yeah, very distinguished difference between the two.
Yes, very much.
I've worked with both.
I know. It's like you just so appreciate those that you can work with that are not like the ones that you don't want to, for sure. Yeah. I know I've talked about this before on the podcast, but it's the client worthiness index, the CWI score. Right. So things like, on a scale of 1 to 100, right? 100 being your most ideal, wonderful, beautiful client. But things that can make their CWI score go down are, were they, on time? Will they listen to me? Will they take my recommendations? Will they, pay me for the value? Or are they going to sit there and try to, nickel and dime you and be trivial about it? Or are they going to value you? And then like 50% of it is gut check, right? Your intuition, right? So if they score, anywhere below a B minus, then, something's not quite right. And they're not going to be the most ideal person that you want to work with, right? So we want high CWI scores.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that that's a thing. I didn't even know that was a thing. So that's amazing. That's a great,
I think now I have to add to it though, the heart-centered, are they heart-centered? Are they servant leaders, or are they takers?
Yeah. I mean, it's true. It's so true.
Yeah. Very cool. True. Well, and like you said, though, there does have to be a certain level of confidence, but not cockiness. There's a big difference.
Yes.
Too, right?
Yes. Put that on a t-shirt.
That's right. That's right. We could totally do that. So tell me more about kind of the process that you go through when you do work with an author. What is your ideal scenario, and kind of just maybe even showcase some of the authors that you have worked with. How did it go? What did you do? What kind of maybe successes did you do? And, that way people kind of get a kind of a day in the life of what you do for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the fan Firestarter framework. Don't ask me to say that 5 times fast. It'll just end up
the
being
fan Firestarter framework. Okay. Did I say that right?
I am.
Okay.
Cool. And I love alliteration. So I was just like, this is it. This is what it's going to be. So we walk them through a pulse check, strategy, and advancement, PSA. It's 3 steps. No matter our client, whether you're an author or you're, a larger business, we follow those 3 steps no matter what. Now, I will say with authors, we have like kind of I'm going to call it like a light version of this, but I'll kind of walk you through kind of the entire process so you have the whole scope. Yeah. First is the pulse check. It's where we pop the hood on our existing channels, what's working, what's not working, take note of the numbers. And this is really that discovery phase for us as our team rolls up our sleeves and really figures out, okay, what's going on in the back end? What goals feel attainable, right? And that feeds right into the strategy. Because I've had clients come to me and they're like, I want to get 10,000 people on my email list and direct traffic from social to do that. I said, cool. How many do you have right now? 3,000. Okay. That's right. Yeah. And she's like, 3,000. I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, how many are you growing per month? And I was looking in the back end, and I was looking at the traffic through Google Analytics. So we're not even just looking at like the native platforms. We're also looking at all the dot connectors between them. And the biggest thing that I found was like, it's only growing by 50 every month. So that tells me, what do we need to do from a social perspective to drive even more traffic there and have the call to action match up? So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at what's working based on the goal, how attainable is the goal, and then compiling a strategy that's sustainable and easy to implement, whether it's me implementing it or they have a virtual assistant implementing it in the background. We want to make sure that there's a rule book for them. And then the advancement is whether or not they want us to do the content development for them, or if they want to do it with us. And there's a few options there where we can have like VIP days and things like that, where we're creating content together at scale. And then you're just plugging and playing in your, either in the native channel or in a schedule tool. So that's the advancement. That's where like most people like forget the first two steps and are like, oh, like, can you just manage my social? That's the advancement piece. We don't do any of that management and content creation without the first two pieces done. I've learned that over time. To set yourself up for success is really where the results shine in the end. So that's, and I guess a success story, I can share one quickly. She is a professor at the University of Washington.
Nice.
And she came to me because she wanted a publishing deal. She submitted her book proposal to a literary agent, and the literary agent loved the idea, but candidly shared with her that no publisher is going to look at her because, and this is, I have a bone to pick with like the formal publishers still in the world. Your publisher, lean in.
Right?
Like, you're still looking at the follower count. And for me, I'm a big proponent of followers don't matter, because what really matters is your engagement and whether they're actually engaging. So I think finally publishers are starting to say, okay, yes, let's look at the total audience. Great. But are these people actually participating in the community and the conversation with this subject matter expert? And all too often, they're only paying attention to the vanity metrics. So she came to me, she's like, I need to up my vanity metrics. I need to up engagement. I need to create content that feels easy to create. And I worked with her for about 8 months, and she grew her following from 1,900 on Instagram to, I think she was at 18,000 by the time we were done for those 8 months, and then has continued to grow it gangbusters with a very simple and sustainable strategy, and moved all of her stuff over to TikTok as well, because her audience was Gen Z, right? She teaches she has one of the largest classes at the University of Washington. She knows her audience, they hang out. And that's where she shares, and she's gone viral a few times for her. And
even though the universities won't allow us to have TikTok on campus, I also am an adjunct at Boise State, and we can't use TikTok. And so I think that just fuels the fire for these students to want it more. Because they can do it on their personal devices.
I didn't even knew that.
Yeah, all government entities cannot use TikTok. The government shut down the TikTok, and so any educational government-funded anything is no longer allowed to have TikTok on their Wi-Fi or their internet. And so when my students were doing a campaign last semester, TikTok was one of the things that they had recommended to the client, but they all had to get off of the university Wi-Fi, get onto their own personal hotspots, and then be able to get on TikTok to do the research, right? I was like, oh, I hope we don't get in trouble for this one, but it's a legitimate educational purpose, right? So I was like, all right, we'll let it fly. But good for her, though. That's awesome.
So we'll have to talk more offline about that, because I want to learn more about that, because that's the first time I've heard that. And I've talked to like other higher ed people, and no one's ever said anything about that. So now goodness. I'm very interested in understanding that. But yeah, so long story short, my professor client, again, her goal was to get a literary deal. She got a literary deal. She's working on her book, and I think it's going to be out next year. So
very cool. Yeah. I'm glad that she got the deal. And you're right. Sometimes it's not about the number of followers, but it's the quality of the people who are following you. And if they are engaging with you, that is so much more important. And yeah, like you said, the vanity numbers don't matter as much, but they, that's the perceived value, right? It's what they think it needs to be. Yeah. Yeah. That's sad, but true. Well, there's like a time where Instagram played around with not having how many likes and how many followers people had, right? I think it's back now. It seems like, I don't know. I never did understand the fallout of that.
Yeah, they did that, like where you can select whether or not you want the likes to show up But now they've added another metric underneath posts of like the share, like how many shares this got. I'm like, great, another thing for people to thought about.
Right, exactly. I know, it's like the social, relevancy. How relevant are you? If people, don't like your posts or don't share your content, then that must mean that you're just not, I know, it's crazy.
Definitely, you have to be very goal driven, I think. And that's where I always talk to clients, because I'm like, your goal is so important, because as soon as it gets fuzzy, you start to pay attention to all these other metrics that don't actually matter to your overarching goal.
Right. No, that's true.
If you're wanting to get more email subscribers, tell people about it. Don't stress about that you didn't get a like, because a like doesn't give you an email address.
Right. Well, and then it's people just think it's a numbers game, but it's really more about quality, not quantity. Yeah,
yes, agreed.
For sure. Now it's time for a message from one of our partners, Kitcaster. Did you know that podcasts are a great way to grow your personal and business brand? And Kitcaster is a podcast booking agency that specializes in developing real human connections through podcast appearances. We've had several guests from Kitcaster on the Marketing Expedition podcast as well. So if you're an expert in your field, have a unique story to share, or an interesting point of view, it's time to explore the world of podcasting with Kitcaster. You can expect a completely customized concierge service from their staff of communication experts. Kitcaster is your secret weapon in podcasting for business. Your audience is waiting to hear from you. Go to kitcaster.com/expedition to apply for a special offer for friends of this podcast. So tell me where you want to be. I mean, what kinds of success metrics for your own company? What does that look like to you in the next, 6 months, year, 5 years from now? What do you want to see with your company growing?
For me, I want to see more authors finding me. Again, I have very recently kind of been shifting into this new niche, and I've never niched down like this publicly ever.
Oh,
so it feels very scary, though. It feels like I'm starting over in a lot of ways, but I'm still doing the same stuff I've been doing, but I'm just declaring that this is who I want to help, and here's why. So I'm hoping that by, end of 2025, if I look back to this point, next year, that I will have a community of authors that I am helping, drive their content forward, their reputation forward, their ROI out of their book forward, so that they can continue to get what they want, which typically is more speaking gigs, maybe another book deal, launch a course to more people. So that's really make a bigger impact, get more donations for their cause, whatever it is. That's what I hope to be doing in 365 days from today.
All right. Well, let's turn the tables just a little bit on you. I'm sure you do this for your clients, so let's do this for yourself for the moment. What kind of tactics have been working? So what are you going to stop, start, keep, or tweak doing to move into and support your, drawing the line in the sand to be able to do specifically author marketing? So what has worked and what has not worked for you?
I am so new in this world. I would say continue to nurture existing relationships. A lot of my business in, the past 7 years has been based on relationships that I've built over time. So I have a lot of key relationships that exist in this market. So I've been really honing in on that and telling them what I'm doing so that I can stay top of mind. And then I'm echoing that over on social media. A lot of my content, my blog, it's all shifting. My website will also eventually shift over to just being author centric. So I hope to have those relationships continue, selling directly to those referral folks, taking the warm leads that I have in the form of past clients and current clients and saying, hey, I'm doing this over here now. Like, come over and join me. So having more conversations, telling more people that it exists, because I don't know about you, even as a marketer myself, we forget to tell people what we're doing.
I know we get backburnered. We're doing all that stuff with
Yeah,
clients.
like I'm
Yeah,
like, oh,
100%.
I'm like, oh, like people can't read my mind? That's weird. And things that have been really working is that subtle sell
Mm-hmm.
on Instagram stories. I get a ton of views on my Instagram stories, more so than on my actual content, and I know that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have really rich relationships in my followers who are viewing those stories. So I'm constantly telling people what I'm doing, what I'm working on. And that also leads to inquiries in my DMs. Oh, what's that boot camp that you're doing in November? Who is that for? How can I help? Like, so people are coming out of the woodwork and offering help, which I'm so appreciative of as well.
Okay.
Because they see what I'm doing in the background, and I do appreciate, any other amplification that I can get outside of my own, circle of folks. So,
That's going to be, helpful to accelerate that word of mouth, and then get your clients who you are helping, get them talking, right? Get some good testimonials. I'm sure you may have already thought of that, but it sounds like your professor at the university would be a huge boost, because I'm sure she has other people that she talks to on a regular basis that could also potentially use your guidance and help in getting something similar done for them. And then it just kind of groundswells from there, right?
I would hope.
So that's your challenge now. You have to ask her for that, right? I mean, you're right. We always get to do that for ourselves.
Writing it down. Yeah. I'm writing it down right now.
But good. I'm glad. See, we got you some action items to take care of. That's good. That's really good. You know what I find too, and you might find this too, is if I give suggested verbiage to people to say, hey, would you be willing to write a recommendation or a review or, a testimonial or whatever, right? Google review, any of those things. And they'll say, sure. But then they don't ever do it. So then we start giving them some ideal, like, here's some thoughts of what you could potentially tweak and make your own, but and AI was really good for that, because then they can take it and make it. And then you also have a little bit of control of what you want them to say, because sometimes, in the moment they're like, oh, I don't know what to write. Sure. I mean, it was a great experience, but so that's one way to go about it. And then the other thing I was going to think of too is being able to send them the link of exactly where you want them to post has been really helpful. Like, we've increased our reviews because of that. It's one thing to say, hey, would you write me a review or a recommendation? Sure. But it's another thing to, like, give them all the necessary things that they need in order to make it as easy as possible. Mm-hmm.
It's so easy for people to help out.
Yes.
And that I have, I'm a co-authoring a chapter in a book that talks all about that, like, cross promotion and making it easy for your people to share what you're doing.
Yes.
So I'm also creating, like, a social media kit for people to amplify stuff. Like, so some of my, empowered partners that exist in the world, who have similar audiences, like speaker coaches, publicists, publishers, all, ghost writers, can amplify that out. But to your point, and I love that idea of, like, just make it easy. Give them all the links.
Convenience and easy. Yep.
Give them the image, and, like, tell them when to post it, and that you'll reshare it and be good. So yeah,
that's great.
Another great.
You just said, co-promotion, right? And like co-oping and bringing other people into your world and space. And I love that when we get speakers for different workshops, and I call them brand camps, because then I can play with, this one time at brand camp, but boot camps, and, I know we have some fun.
That ladders up into those instruments perfectly.
Right. Totally. But then bringing other speakers in, now suddenly they have their audience that they're promoting, them being, speakers at this event. And then, if you've got multiple different speakers and sponsors, right? I love bringing sponsors in, because then they're going to put it out to their people. And now suddenly you've just amplified your entire audience based on who you invite to bring. And knowing that they're going to be willing to help share and promote and put it out there. And we do new marketing trends for the new year every January. And I have one sponsor that even if they, they pay to sponsor, but honestly, they pay so much more in all of the everything that they do to put it out in their newsletter and put it out on their socials and put it out. I mean, like they hand out flyers at the events that they're at. And I'm just like, you can't have a better relationship than them. And I was like, if everybody would do what they do, this whole event could be huge, right?
Yeah. And it baffles me also. I was talking to one of my friends who was running a podcast, and she was like, it drives me crazy that people spend their time and energy having these amazing conversations and then do nothing with them. And one of mine on her podcast was like the top podcast or the top episode of the season. And I was like, why do you think that is? She's like, because you shared it a lot. I was like, yeah, it's funny how that works.
Exactly. No, it's true. It definitely. And I love to have those podcast guests back when we know that they're engaging and sharing and using it. And, they slice and dice and quotable moments and just, and then give credit to us and where credit's due. I love it because that it's a community of, effort together. It's a combined effort. And it's not just on one side or the other to get it out there. Right. I mean, if you're going to spend time on doing these podcasts and doing the interviews and all of that, absolutely. You're right. Like do something with it. Yeah. Follow up with people. I think that's the number one thing that is like any survey out there, right? And of course, all like 80% of surveys are made up. So, whatever. But I've seen some information on the number one thing that is the most frustrating for entrepreneurs or for leaders is when somebody promises you to do something and then they don't follow through and do it, right? It's like the follow-up after a trade show or the follow-up after a big event. If people aren't following up, then what was the point of even doing the event to begin with and spending time doing it, right?
Yeah. Baffling.
Anyway, so Karlyn, share a little bit more with our audience on how they can get a hold of you, especially if they're in the author space or maybe thinking about it, right? I'm sure you can connect people that are looking to become authors too, I imagine, right?
Yes, absolutely. The best place to find me is osnapsocial.com. And the socials that I hang out on the most are LinkedIn. So you can look me up, Karlyn Ankrom, Ankrom. Mm-hmm. And Instagram is where you'll see me dancing and having
I love it.
much fun with my toddler. So that's where you get the behind the curtain.
Every time you say your company name, Oh Snap, I just want to snap my fingers. Right?
And then have like the dance snap move. And swerve.
Yes, dance move. Yeah. I know this is just audio, but she's dancing in her chair. I love it. That's right.
Yes, I am.
Just need some music. Well, excellent. So any final thoughts, Karlyn, about, kind of, we talked a lot about a lot of different things today, but if you were to kind of wrap up and have any final thoughts for our audience, what would you like to say?
I would love to share that social media is the best place to have fun with who you are, show your authenticity. I think we get so wrapped up in what everyone else is doing in our industry and the social media landscape that we lose a little bit of who we are because we're trying to be like everybody else. So take the time today, this weekend, whatever, when you're listening, and think about ways that you can add the flavor of who you are and your personality into your content, because that's what really, truly resonates with people. So let's go have more fun on social media. I don't know. That's maybe a challenge for all of us. Yeah. Maybe have a little bit more fun.
I like it. Fun is definitely a core value of ours, so I'll take it.
Amazing.
Well, awesome. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you today, Karlyn. Thank you for sharing your wisdoms and your successes, and I want to wish you the best in getting niched down. I can't wait to see how things go for you.
Thank you. It feels scary, but we're going to do it.
We're going to do it. Okay. Awesome. And for those of you listening, the best thing that you can do for us is share this, like we talked about, with others that need to hear what she had to say. Maybe you know somebody that's an author or wants to become an author. Get a hold of Karlyn to do that. And until next time, everybody, enjoy your marketing journey.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Expedition podcast. Want to continue the journey? Don't miss out on new episodes. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Wouldn't it be great if there was one place you can go to get all the latest information and tips about marketing and advertising? The Marketing Expedition community is that place. People like you gather in our online community to build relationships with others and find the latest marketing trends, tactics, tools, and technology. We help you build your brand and your bottom line. Start your adventure today. Visit themarketingexpedition.com to find out more.